Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you with another Pokemon deck profile, with today's focus being Ting-Lu Ex, which is a deck that I honestly feel has a lot of potential going forward, or at least until we get like a new rotation. So I definitely recommend playing this deck sooner rather than later, because once rotation hits, a lot of its favorable matchups, decks that revolve around Pokemon V and the likes, are going to be rotated out more than likely. So yeah, if you want to see this deck like at its full potential, I definitely recommend trying it now. And with that out of the way, now we can jump straight into the deck profile. So as always with these types of deck profiles, we're going to be doing them in the Yu-Gi-Oh style, which means you're going to be seeing one Pokemon at a time or just one card at a time. If you want to see everything in its entirety, feel free to skip to the end of the video, or you can also check the description down below where the deck list will be posted. So with that in mind, we can now start with the Pokemon lineup, being 4 Ting-Lu EX. I decided to play 4 Ting-Lu just because I feel it's that important to the deck, and you pretty much always want to have it somewhere on your type of the field, whether it's in the active or in the bench in case you get like escape roped or something. You pretty much always want to have 2 on somewhere at any given point. And what it does, right? So its attack, Land Scoop, does 150, and then you put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and then this benefits its ability because its ability Curse Land makes it so that any Pokemon that your opponent has, whether it's on their bench or their active, pretty much has no abilities as long as it has damage counters while Ting-Lu is in the active zone. So you're basically just going to be turning off decks, a lot of their functions to be able to actually play the game, And in this current metagame, there's a lot of non-EX decks that are, pretty scared of this card just resolving in general, whether it's Lugia, Arceus, Lost Box, things of that nature. They would prefer just not having to deal with this type of card. But unfortunately, while this deck sounds incredible on paper, it has one really bad matchup in Gardevoir EX, which just completely invalidates Ting-Lu EX and it hits everything super hard. And yeah, it's just going to be a bad time if you run into Gardevoir. But if you don't run into Gardevoir, you're going to be having a great time. And so with that, we can now move on to the next one, being 2 Koraidon EX. Its attack while impact does 220, and then it can't attack on the next turn, which, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But its main, allure would be the ability Dino Cry, which is once during your turn, you may attach up to 2 basic fighting energy cards from your discard pile to your basic fighting Pokemon in any way you like. And what's there to say? Abilities that turbo energy out are pretty good. The only downside is that after you use this ability, your turn ends. So make sure that you're fully set up before you attempt to use your Koraidon EXs, because, you just want to make sure that you can actually play to your fullest potential on the next turn. Then to go with the Koraidon EXs, we're going to be playing 2 Hawlucha. So this complements Ting-Lu very well, because when this card is placed from your hand to the bench, you can choose 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon and place 1 damage counter on each one. So you're basically just turning off their abilities from the get-go as long as you have the Hawlucha with the Ting-Lu. So, really solid. You're typically not going to be setting up an attack with Hawlucha unless you're getting like really desperate, but yeah, you're basically just using it to spread damage. Then, to go with the Hawluchas, we're going to be playing 2 Squawkability EXs. This is going to be one of our main consistency cards, especially because this card can only be used during your turn 1. And what it does is once during your first turn, you may discard your hand, then draw 6 cards. But you can't use more than one Squawk and Seize ability during your turn. It's just, you don't want this card prized, because getting it out of your prizes means it's literally just another brick. You'd rather play the 2 so you can get to it more consistently. And even then, like its attack honestly isn't horrible, which is Motivate. So you attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon, and it does 20 damage. So this is going to be like a great method that you can use just in case you get hit by something like Path to the Peak, which this deck 100% struggles against, or just things of that nature. If your opponent focused down your Koraidon, for example, right? If you don't have any Koraidons, or they're all prized or whatever, you're gonna have to rely on something like Squawkability to turbo out your energies onto your Ting-Lus and things of that nature. So yeah, 2 Squawkability, solid. Would not play more than that, but I also wouldn't really recommend just playing the 1. Then to go with our spread, we're gonna be playing Radiant Alakazam. Just choose. During your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of their Pokemon. Just another way to help your Ting-Lu be as effective as possible. You're literally never going to attack with this card because we don't play any Psychic energies. Then we're also playing 1 Spiritomb, just another win button against, Mew decks, which may or may not become more popular after its win at Worlds. We'll see, but it's just nice to have just in case. And then for the final card, we're going to be playing 1 Great Tusk EX. So I mentioned earlier that cards like Path to the Peak kind of just like, destroy this deck. And this is one of those ways that we can actually, effectively play around that card without having to have like a counter stadium in play, because its ability, Bedrock Breaker, while it only does 40 damage, it can discard a stadium in play. So you just commit to the Great Tusk for one turn, you knock out their path to the peak, and then for the next turn, you're good to go. And then it also hits like a truck, because thanks to its other attack, Gigantic Tusk, it hits for 250, which, is fantastic, and then it does 50 damage to itself. So it's a solid card, but I wouldn't really play more than one. It's just like a really cool tech option that you can take advantage of. And with that, that's the Pokemon lineup, and now we can get to the, like supporter items, that type of stuff. So we're going to be focusing on the, like items and stadiums and things of that nature currently. And then we'll get to like the supporters after, just because this deck plays so many like trainer cards. So we're going to be starting off with 4 Battle VIP Pass cards broken. You got to play 4 of them in pretty much every deck, because it's literally the best turn 1 card in the game. You're going to be playing 4 Ultra Balls. So this is going to help you get your fighting energies into the discard a lot more easily, just in case you don't have access to like a Squawkability or a Professor's Research or things of that nature. So, and it's still really solid, right? You discard 2 fighting energies, add your Koraidon, and then you literally just set up your Koraidon's ability for the end of the turn. Then we're also be playing 2 Nest Balls, probably the least effective of all the cards. That's why I'm only playing 2 of them. But sometimes you just need to put something on the bench from your deck. So yeah, it's fine. Next, we're gonna be playing 4 Gutsy Pickaxes. This is one of the cards that pretty much helps you turbo through your deck as soon as possible, because what it does, you reveal the top card of your deck, and then if that card is a fighting energy card, you attach it to one of your bench Pokemon. So while it's not the greatest, because typically you want to give it to like your Ting-Lu, which would be in the active spot, since we're playing so many Ting-Lus, we can usually have like 1 or 2 extras like on the bench. So we're always going to have something to attach to the Gutsy Pickaxe, and just getting those fighting energies, out of the deck and somewhere onto either the bench or your hand is still really solid. We're gonna be playing 3 Switch cards. Everything in this deck is a basic Pokemon, so Switch card is kind of like a no-brainer, because it allows you to pretty much freely switch, and then it also heals 30 damage from the Pokemon that you retreat. To go with that, we're gonna be playing 3 Trekking Shoes. Much like Gutsy Pickaxe, it's pretty much the same philosophy, except you discard the card first, because what it does, you look at the top card, and then you can either keep that, or you can discard it and draw 1 more card. If you hit like a fighting energy, it's fantastic. You just discard that fighting energy and then draw another card, and then you, like I said, you're pretty much always trying to set up your Koraidon EXs as soon as possible with as many energies to choose from. So yeah, solid card. Then we're playing 2 Bravery Charms. Everything in here is a basic Pokemon, so it's no-brainer. You just give it to whatever you have, and then it just becomes an even bigger tank that a lot of decks honestly have like a lot of trouble hitting unless they commit a lot of their resources to it. So it's a solid card. And then we're playing 1 Escape Rope. It's Escape Rope. Sometimes you just need to get your opponent's active out of their active while also switching your cards. So we rely on something like Escape Rope to get the job done. And then for the final 2, we'll be playing 2 Grapejaw Bog. So this is going to be your main stadium. It's also your only stadium, because what it does is whenever either player plays a basic Pokemon from their hand to the bench, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So you combine this with your Ting-Lu, and the game's basically over, because your opponent is not going to be able to play. And yeah, card's fantastic. And with that, that's that finished up. And now we can just head on over to the supporter and I guess the energy lineup. So for the supporters, pretty standard, honestly. There aren't that many good ones, especially because, Pokemon implemented the rule where you can't play a supporter on your first turn if you go first, but they're still important. So we're playing 3 Professor's Research. Discard your entire hand, draw 7 cards. Fantastic to get rid of pretty much your brick fighting energies. You're playing 3 Judge for hand disruption, also a really solid card. You don't really enjoy playing cards like Iono in this deck, just because you want to have a lot of cards in your hand. You don't want to like lower yourself down to any potential, because you do not want to be on top deck mode with this deck, if I'm being honest. You have your 2 Boss's Orders, staple generic stuff. And then speaking of Iono, we're using just the 1, because while it's not ideal, sometimes you just have to. You can probably play like a Roxanne as well, but Iono is a lot more generic, I guess, or it's a lot more feasible to achieve, like to have very, desirable results. There we go. Then to go with that, we're playing 1 Penny. So what this card does, you put one of your basic Pokemon and all cards attached to it back into your hand. If your Pokemon's pretty close to being knocked out, or you don't want to lose all your energies, whatever the reason may be, you can just penny them back and try again on the next turn. And it's also really good at helping you get your Hawluchas back. So, you know, you can do the whole, you have your Ting-Lu with the Hawlucha, you add back the Hawlucha, you place it again, then you put 10 more damage on 2 other Pokemon, and yeah, things can just get out of hand really fast. And then for the final supporter, we're playing 1 Avery. I still really like this card. I think it has like a lot of potential for what it does. You know, draw 3 cards and your opponent sends Pokemon from their bench to the discard until they only have 3 Pokemon. Just be aware that you want to use this card before you start putting damage counters, because, you know, if you've set up your opponent's entire field with damage counters and then you Avery them, you give them an opportunity to get rid of the more useless ones and then pretty much start a brand new game with 2 free slots. So yeah, Avery first, then spread your damage later. So keep that in mind. And then that's it for the supporter lineup. And then we just have like a bunch of energies. We're just playing 11 basic fighting energies. You know, nothing too crazy, but you have to do what you got to do. And with that, that's the Ting-Lu deck. And now I'll catch you guys in a bit as I get it all, like, you know, spread out for everyone to see in its entirety. So overall, the deck is really fun. It has a lot of really favorable matchups or instances where it can become favorable. It's just, I think Gardevoir is just a little bit too much for this deck to handle, so I wouldn't really recommend it. Unless, you know, you're just perfectly fine with playing like a fighting deck because you love fighting decks. But yeah, if you want to have a fun time, you know, frustrate your opponent a little bit, this is definitely the deck to do it with. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!